People with mental illnesses. What do you think was your first sign? Not wanting to die but not wanting to live. Man, can't relate better. I'm in a mental institution right now and they won't let me leave because they fear that I'll kill myself after consuming cannabis. Sleeping all the ducking time. Poor diet as well. I always felt fatigued and not myself. I felt like this for all of college. Got diagnosed with depression. But also found out my vitamin D and thyroid levels were crazy low. Depression meds. Some vitamin D and thyroid meds later and I'm still depressed lol, but not nearly as bad. When everything in my life was great objectively. Yet I still wanted to kill myself. Edit. So this comment kind of blew up a little. And I'd therefore like to respond to a few rare occurrences. First, thank you for your support. I am doing much better now after going to therapy with a therapist and psychiatrist and starting on an amazing medication I didn't know about called mirtazapine. Second, I see some people informing others to do things like work out and eat right. This is great advice and it works for some. But not all. I've always had a pretty good routine. I play music. Exercise 6x a week. Eat vegetarian unless I'll lift weights. Avoid sugar unless it's my weekly cheat day. I draw. I'm in grad school. I'm writing a book, the list goes on. But like I said above, everything was fine objectively. This doesn't always work for everyone. And some people may need more. Third, for those of you whom are struggling, my heart goes out to you. Be sure to keep trying to keep your head above the water. I would suggest trying to form a solid routine first. But if that doesn't work, try therapy. If therapy doesn't work, ask your therapist to refer you to a psychiatrist and they will find out what needs to be prescribed. If any of you need anyone to talk to, just PM me. I know when you get to that place that you don't want to talk to anyone. Or you feel that maybe no one wants to talk to you. But just remember, they do. I'm here if you would like any advice regarding personal experience of getting on the proper track or if you just want to vent. My family loves me to death. My friends respect me. My peers are chill with me. See? No one in the damn world is against me. So why do I feel so hopeless and alone? Huge sign was insomnia, but I think my insomnia and depression are linked. Whenever I had insomnia, I had a depressive episode. Although, in the beginning the depression was light, in which I only lost motivation and questioned a lot. It's also a good sign of a manic episode. I have the same problem. I'm not sure if the depressive manic episodes are caused by lack of sleep or if I'm not sleeping because of the episodes. I can go days without eating a single thing when I have them too. I feel like I'm fine and it's all in my head, but then someone asks me if I'm okay and I just break down because I realize that I'm not when it's pointed out to me. I haven't been diagnosed with anything because I'm scared to see a doctor and they will tell me I'm faking it all because of how mainstream mental illnesses are becoming. When everyone around me was smiling and laughing and I felt like I was watching them through a glass window. What were you diagnosed with? I go through phases where I feel that way. And then a week later I feel as normal as ever. Having the "if I just died today" thought in the back of my mind every day. For well over a decade now, even on the days when great things happened. Yo. I'm also someone who is seriously meh about living. If I died today, nothing would even matter. I've also got tics, you see. There's a bunch of undealt with stuff in my head, and after a particularly rough patch, I started telling myself tomorrow. Like, if there's a tomorrow, you'll be fine today. Kinda mantra. Now that I'm back on my feet somewhat, I still blurt it out 5 or 6 or 7 times a day. It's annoying. But at the same time, maybe a mantra like that can help your headspace. It did for me for a while. When I got out of getting mugged, it was like something out of a movie. I was walking alone at night through a park and a man pulled a knife on me, demanding my wallet. At the time I was going through a pretty rough patch. I had divorced the previous year. My wife refused to let me see our kids, in case I said something bad about her. A child support order had come through, taking out nearly half of my paycheck. And all of the friends I made when I was married were supporting my ex, because she's going through a lot. So I figured, duck it, and told the man that if he killed me, He could have my wallet. The would-be mugger called me a crazy ass mother ducker and walked away disgusted. And that's when I realized I might have a problem. My college roommate and I got held up with a knife walking from downtown to our dorm. I literally began to laugh and said something along the lines of "W, what are you going to do? Stab me for a nickel?" It's about the time I realized I hold no value for my life. Thankfully that was 5 years ago and I'm much happier. And much healthier. But I've been there and I get it. I hope you're doing better, man. Don't be afraid to get help. Paranoid schizophrenic here. Didn't know until I had my first psychotic episode after smoking a joint for the first time in ages. I thought snipers were aimed at my window. Caused me a major panic attack. I couldn't go near any windows. I broke down and got an ambulance. Once at the hospital, I told someone what my beliefs were and he referred me to the psych wing. Couple weeks later was diagnosed and put on daily meds. Which I'm still taking 11 years later. It's hard to really know what the actual first signs were. Because I felt fine. I'd say maybe obsessing over things. Being oddly quiet. Talking to myself. Thinking of achieving very unrealistic goals constantly. Dunno. I'm sorry this happened to you. But I do think that it's important for people to know that marijuana can trigger psychotic symptoms in people at risk for schizophrenia or cause the disease to occur earlier than it normally would. Anyone with a family history of schizophrenia should definitely not smoke pot. Severe ADD, when I was in first grade and my teacher told me to focus in class. So I focused on focusing so much that I forgot what I was supposed to be focusing on and stopped focusing. You've focused to the astral plane, my friend. Being suicidal at age 9 was a pretty big sign. But I think I was about 4 when it became clear that something was very wrong with me. It is a hard question to answer since my parents were abusive and most of my issues are caused by abuse. So, I'd say that I sort of always thought of myself as a failure because of how my parents treated me. I legitimately didn't think people were supposed to have emotions since I got yelled at anytime I had an emotion. And because I wasn't allowed to cry, I began self-harm in early elementary school. By middle school I carried a razor blade with me everywhere I went just in case I had to get rid of emotions. Edit. My diagnoses are complex post-traumatic stress disorder and borderline personality disorder, thanks to my parents. Generalized anxiety disorder. ADHD. And chronic insomnia, which my therapist thinks might actually be delayed sleep phase disorder. Edit 2. Now I'm almost 26 and feel like more of a failure than I have ever felt like before. I had to give up my career goals due to how dysfunctional I am and I might go on disability for a while and try to work entirely on my health for a while. Every other thought I have is an image of suicide. So no. I'm not okay now. I want to kill myself quite badly. But I also don't want to be hospitalized for a 6th time since the 5th time was mostly dissociation and flashbacks from traumatic past hospitalizations. But yeah. I'm almost 26 and I still want to commit suicide. Gotta love that CPTSD. You look back and think how the duck did no one realize what was wrong. I did a training course to volunteer with an organization I'd been a part of since I was 6. And learning all of the signs of trauma in a classroom and thinking how most very obviously applied to me. Yet no one ever did anything was pretty rough. I was feeling so incredibly frustrated by everything. Going to school every day, going to classes I didn't care about, I couldn't hold back the tears of boredom. I felt like every day was being stolen from me and draining my energy. Everyone else seemed so content. I felt like I was going to explode. I needed to do something, feel something. OMG, this explains me to a T right now. Have you seen a professional to figure out if it's depression? Have you gotten something to help? When I really wanted to work on important stuff and had a lot of motivation to get things done, but then I'd get distracted and 12 hours would pass and I'd have done or learned many things, but nothing I needed to get done would actually be done. I've read so many ducking Wikipedia pages. I know a lot, but none of it is useful for anything other than seeming like I'm smart while talking to people about subjects that I don't need to know about. Hobbies I've very extensively researched but never started doing. Building FPV drones. growing and caring for bonsai trees, growing bamboo, perfumery, coding, amateur astronomy, building infinity mirrors. It is one hell of a thing. Are you sure your hobby is not researching hobbies? The racing thoughts. I felt like I literally could not turn my mind off. I think my then abusive relationship contributed to this symptom. I remember though once I took my first dose of antidepressants. I woke up with my mind being silenced. It felt so weird. Crying spells also were a sign I knew was abnormal. May I ask what your diagnosis is? I feel pretty much the same. When you start hearing people give you the same scripted response of it will get better or just get on with it. Then personally feeling angry that no one bothered to give me good advice. I knew I had something in me that was causing me trouble. Basically, me sharing my problems and the response I got was my first sign. What's your diagnosis? This is what my mom told me. She is a labor and delivery nurse if that helps her credentials at all. She noticed my lack of interest and my inability to focus started becoming an issue around 3rd grade. Kids that young can't have depression. After paying attention and really noticing my behavior and patterns, she was like, damn, he does have depression and anxiety. Super on top of things. A couple therapists scoffed at her and watched me play with toys and determined I was fine and boys will be boys. By 8th grade I was a cluster duck incarnate. By 14/15 I started medication trials. Thanks mom. Still depressed. Still anxious. But thanks for being my advocate. Seems like you have a good mom. When I was 3 I lost my favorite stuffed animal. My cousin had the same stuffed animal. And I found it in her closet. I thought it was mine. But she said it was hers and the family agreed. Well, I still thought it was my animal. My cousin was lying to me. And the entire family knew the animal was really mine and were conspiring, although I didn't use that word at 3 lol, against me to keep it a secret and keep me from my favorite toy. I believe that to be my first paranoid thoughts. I have paranoid schizophrenia. If you don't mind me asking, when did you experience your other symptoms? I've had similar paranoid thoughts from a really young age. I've always just chalked it up to being cynical. But I suspect my dad is schizoaffective, so I'm a little concerned. Irrational thoughts. Thoughts that I knew were not real but dominated the majority of my thinking. Absolutely feel this. Anxiety here. I have emetophobia, fear of sickness and vomit, which triggers me. Some of my first symptoms of anxiety were whenever I was sick. I would shake and hyperventilate. This started around age 8. Every time I've ever thrown up, or had anyone throw up around me is vividly ingrained in my memory. The main panic attacks came around the same time. I'd panic at any time of change. As a kid I'd always miss out on sleepovers due to anxiety. I've also had this since childhood. It has greatly affected my eating patterns, because I'm afraid to get food poisoning. That has evolved into not being able to eat outside and lately not even eating foods that could get stuck in my throat and make me gag. I know how silly it sounds whenever I try to explain it to others. I feel like I'm getting better at reducing this fear, but it's still always at the back of my mind. Do you have any tips to get over it or ways of calming myself in these situations? Being put in remedial classes in elementary school because I was failing and being labeled gifted because of my CCAT results within the same year. I was painfully shy and hated everything about school from an early age. Turned out to be just the way my brain is wired. Course back then mental health in schools wasn't a thing, and instead of support I just took a lot of shit for being capable but continuing to fail. Some of my teachers took it personally. I'm so sorry. Being labeled as gifted while still fighting is both a blessing and a curse. Being mature for my age in high school. That was just my anxiety forcing me to set unrealistic expectations of myself to maintain control. I believed I was a god for 6 years and started a cult in middle school. In retrospect, post-hospitalization and medication, that was a big red flag. You would have been a great addition to a ward I was on. We had 2 Jesuses and I thought I was a prophet. Great fun. I got ADHD. I think the first thing that told was when the teacher in 3rd grade explained the assignment and I had a really hard time paying attention. So I asked her to repeat and she wouldn't. So I just flat out didn't do it. A month later we had a conference and what really made me mad during it was my teacher interrupt the principal and me parent by saying, "I think he might have severe ADHD." Which I don't have. But we did test and found out I did have minor ADHD. This isn't the first sign but it's one I remember the most. BTW anyone reading this. I hope you have a nice day or night. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.